those responses. Give you guys just a few seconds to throw something in the chat and get there before the greedy people do. Um, and then we will get rolling. All right. All right, cool. We are going to hop into Candace's question. Candace has a question. She says, what can someone expect when it comes to private financing? For a private lender to finance them, what cash must they have on hand? What out-of-pocket expenses should they anticipate paying personally that they may not have considered? Great question. So what Candace is talking about, and Candace gets bonus points because she's both on the call and submitted it here. So golden stars for Candace. And she's got her video on. So that's another star. All right. Candace, when it comes to private financing, what Candace is talking about is private lending. And so I want to clarify the difference between private lending and hard money lending. Um, Private lending is different than hard money lending in that hard money lending is an institution. So think of it like a mini bank. There's, I don't know, 6, 10, 20 people or whatever. They borrow money from hedge funds, private equity, Wall Street. They raise money some other way. It's usually at least in the seven figures, and then they're getting charged, call it 8% on that, and then they turn around and they lend it to you, me, and the other real estate investors that call it 16%, and they take the arbitrage. They pay their overhead and they pay their shareholders. But the intent there is to communicate that they're an entity. They are an organization. So they have the benefits of that is there's more of them out there, so they're all over the place. If you just spin around in a circle and throw a rock, you'll probably hit three of them. But the challenges are that they don't move quite as quickly as a private lender would, and their terms aren't quite as beneficial. And when I say terms aren't quite as beneficial, I mean that in multiple senses. The terms aren't quite as they're not quite as sexy as in the interest rate and the origination points and those things, but they're also not as flexible as the terms. So usually hard money lenders will say, hey, you got to pay me every month, or they'll have higher upfront fees, or they'll have these ancillary doc prep fees or origination fees or broker fees or just random fees that you see on there. You're like, what does that even mean? It's just an extra way to monetize the loan. And usually that goes to paying the broker. That's a hard money loan. A private money loan is an individual lending their own money. So if let's say you've got 500 grand in your bank account and you want to make, right now it's making 0.25% in your BOA account or your Wells Fargo account, and you want to make more money on that, you could go put it in a high yield savings account, and make 4%. You could go put it in some other account and make, I don't know, 6, maybe 8%. But if you really wanted to spin it up and make a bunch of money, you could put it into private lending and fund other people's deals. Usually you're making 16 to 20% on those types of deals. They're very easy. I often say it's the easiest money I've ever made. You do two things. At the very beginning, you lend the money out and then they pay you back. That's pretty much it. There's a few more nuances to it or like details to it, but it's really very simple. So that's the difference is an individual versus an institution. And for anybody on the call, if you're like, oh man, that sounds great. I've got some money sitting on the side. I'd love to lend. Go to BlakeSchwanney.com, and at the top, there's invest with us, and you can submit some interest to be a private lender to some of my students. That essentially allows you the protection that you otherwise just wouldn't have. Like one of the challenges of being a private lender is you got to find people you can trust. They know what they're doing, and they're trustworthy from an integrity standpoint. Trust is made up of two things: character and competence. Right? Character, are they a good person? Are they mutually aligned with you? And competence, do they know what they're doing? I often say, my brother is my best friend. He's a fantastic human. He's a great father. If I got hit by a bus, I'd give him my kids. I would not let him, however, operate on my brain because he's an idiot when it comes to brain surgery. Like that's just, I can't trust him with brain surgery, but I can trust him with other things. So character and competence. For people that are like, man, I really want to get a really pretty low risk return of 16, 18, 20%, go to BlakeSchwanney.com, select invest with us and submit some interest, and we'll see if you're a good fit. Can't take everybody, but we'll see if you're a good fit. Now, to Candace's question, distinction between private lending and hard money lending is important here because Candace is asking about private money lending. I can give some extra context to these answers on hard money lending as well, if that's helpful. Candace, send that over in the chat. But when it comes to private lending, your first question is, what can someone expect? I'll walk you through the process of what it looks like to be the borrower of a private money loan, and I'll also go through what requirements they expect of you. From an investor standpoint, when you're raising private money, I'll give everybody here a raising private money hack. As you're a real estate investor, really you've got two roles. One is make offers on deals. The other is find money. And so sometimes that could be hard money, that could be institutional money, but I mean, your success is directly going to be correlated with your ability to raise private money, and it's not that hard. You just have to do it. You just have to keep doing it. And you get to the point where you talk to 10 people about it, or you talk to 20 people about it, and you realize I've had every 20 people I talk to, I find a private lender. That just means if you want 5 private lenders, you got to talk to 100 people. And that's not, it's really, it really isn't rocket science. So you just got to know who you're talking to, who you're looking for, and how to fulfill on it. Those people want three things. They want safety for their money. They don't like the volatility of the market. They want it to be predictable. They want to make more than they're making in their Wells Fargo account. They're making 0.25% on their savings account. And they want it to be reasonably safe. They want it to be protected. There is nothing in life without risk. Nothing in life at all without risk. You cannot breathe without risk. If you do one thing, you risk doing the wrong thing or spending your time on the wrong. You just can't avoid risk. So you've got to figure out which risk is best for me and which risk is the right risk to take on. So all that to say, when you are raising private money, the goal of your first conversation with them, with that individual, is to get them into a longer conversation. So you got a 30-second pitch. And then your goal is to get them into call it 45-minute conversation. The 30-second pitch is, hey, I work with people in real estate. I've been closing on some properties, and I'm always looking for additional partners to finance those loans. You know, the people that I work with that it's best for, they want high returns with low volatility. They want to make more than what they're making right now in their savings account, a little bit of humor. And then they want it to be protected. They don't want to deal with, someone in, some group in Reddit taking over the stock market and they lose all their money because one group of people decided to have a vendetta against or for some company. Those are the people that it's right for. So anybody that might be a good fit for? Asking that question at the end. So what we did was we positioned the 3 value adds, which means one, not everybody's going to be your right person. Right? You don't want everybody to loan to you. If you're talking to, your cashier at the gas station, they're probably not the right person to lend to you. That doesn't mean don't talk to them, but you just have to have your expectations set. You're looking for a very specific person. So if somebody says no to you, then because they don't have any money, that's okay. You're looking for people that either have chunks of money that they want to invest or they're well connected. So you position the 3 things that you care about because you want to filter through the people that are who you're looking for. You want to attract them. You want to repel others. You don't want to have a conversation spend 2 hours having a conversation with someone only to find out that they don't have any money. That 2 hours could have been spent at your kid's ballet recital, or you could have taken a nap. All right. Which in my world, they're rare these days. We got 2 under 3, 2, 3 and under. So that just doesn't happen anymore. So you want to attract the right people and repel other people. So when you have that conversation, you position the 3 things, then you say, do you know anybody that would be a good fit for? This does a few things. One is it allows them to opt in, allows them to self opt in. If they're like, man, that sounds really sexy, I want in, right? If you say, I work with people that want $15 million free, and all they have to do is, count to 10. Do you know anybody that'd be good for? Everybody's going to opt in, right? So if it's the right thing for them, it's going to be like giving a cool glass of water to somebody in the desert. And if it's not, they'll think, who could I connect you with? So one, it allows them to opt in, and 2, it allows a gracious exit without making it feel so salesy. Now, what I don't intend to do here is dog on sales, because sales skills, I think, are the most valuable skills in the world. And the reason why people hate sales is because they've bought a used car before, and they have experienced someone putting their own priorities over their personal goals. And really, really good salespeople know that they're finding a match. You're not trying to sell, the age old, sell me this pen. Well, if someone's a quadriplegic and they can't write with a pen, why would you sell them a pen? They don't need a pen. If they never write with a pen and they only use their laptop, why would you sell them a pen? They don't need a pen. But if you have something of value to them, you have to get them to see it. You have to help them see it. It's the same way that, if you had the cure for cancer and you were talking to somebody with cancer and they said, no, I don't want to have a conversation about it. It's your moral obligation to help them see that you can help them. Right. So what I don't intend to do is dog on sales, because it's an incredibly valuable skill, but you have to find the right people and then allow them to opt in. So when you say, do you know anybody that's a good option for? One, it allows them to opt in, and two, it allows them to not have the pressure of, would you like to buy my widget for 3 monthly installments of $9.95? It just feels awkward. It allows you to maintain a helpful conversation, productive conversation. They might even say, well, I don't know. What does this mean? What do you mean by that? And you get into a really good conversation. But it also connects you to their network. Where it used to be that we were all 7 degrees of freedom away from each other. Now with social media and everything, it's 3 degrees. There's a reason why LinkedIn has 3 degrees of freedom when you filter down to looking at people, first connections, second connections, and third connections. There, you don't need anymore. You're 3 degrees of freedom away from anybody in the world. That's wild. So it allows you to think of all the people that you know, and then asking them, do you know anybody that this would be right for? They go through their entire Rolodex in their head of people this might be right for. And they say, well, I don't know, or yes, no, whatever. If they say yes, ask them for a connection. Get a connection to them, preferably a group text, because you want them to hand a warm handoff from them or from your conversation to them. It allows you to attach to their relationship with that person. If they say no, say, well, if you think of anybody, will you let me know? Because they might be mid workout and they think, man, that person actually might be good for that. Now you're getting some type of confirmation, some type of commitment from them to actually let you know. But it allows them to opt in. If they opt in, or you get connected with the next person and they say, hey, yes, I'm really interested. The next step is a long-term conversation, or a longer conversation, 45 minutes. I have some private money scripts in the school community that you can go check out. They're awesome. They'll walk you through this whole thing, but the whole conversation is essentially, what's your goals? Like, what are you trying to achieve? Because if you don't get through that and you can't help them, you shouldn't finish the conversation. You should just go ahead and say, well, to be honest, it doesn't seem like we're a very good fit. It just doesn't seem like we're a very good fit. So, is there anything that I can do for you to help you, and try and offer something to help? But go ahead and just cut the conversation there. The second, after you have that conversation and you talk about their goals, then you say, well, you want to get permission to be able to essentially pitch and say, well, it sounds like it would be a really good fit. Why don't I tell you what I do and who I work with? And then we can see if it's worth having a longer conversation. You essentially pitch what you're good at. And then after that, you say, that sound good? What does that sound helpful? What do you think? And then you'll go into objections. They'll say, well, how do you do this? Or what is it like this? And you go through all those objections with the goal of getting them to either say, yes, I'm in, or no, I'm out. And if they don't say yes or no, and they say maybe, you have to schedule another call. That next call needs to be within a week, ideally. A month is fine, but the faster, the better, because momentum's a thing. So that's after you set that up. And again, we're talking about the private money process. That's kind of getting the initial commitment. And they say, all right, here, Candace, I'll give you $300,000 of private money to go roll with. You've now got it set up. The next step is you find a deal, you send it over to them. And as you're wrapping up that initial conversation and they commit, one of the things you got to say before you leave is, all right, so here are the terms that we talked about. The next step is I'm going to go find an awesome deal, and I'm going to send it to you and say, hey, this is what I need. Here's the loan that I'm requesting, like the amount. I just need a thumbs up, thumbs down in ideally 24 hours, 8 business hours. Can we do that? Is that good to go? Right. And if you need to hop on a quick call or you need me to send a voice memo outlining everything, I can. But speed wins in this conversation. So as an investor, I have to do two things consistently. I've got to make well-informed decisions quickly. I can't do one or the other. If I just make fast decisions, I'm going to lose all my money. If I make well-informed decisions that take a month, I'm going to lose every property. So those are the things so can I get that done in 24 hours? Does that sound good? Okay, perfect. Then you're going to bring them a deal. Say, hey, this is a good deal. Are you ready to roll? I'm closing in 12 days. They give you the thumbs up. Then you go ahead and connect them with title. You don't already have to have an agreement set together and put together for a private money, a promissory note or anything like that. You just go and you connect them with title. So you copy them into the conversation. You say, "Hey, title, my gal's name is Kim. Kim at Texas Pioneer. Kim, I've copied in Candace in this conversation. She's going to be funding my deal. She's my private funder. And then mention your lender and say, in this case, Candace is my private money lender. Candace, here are the terms we agreed to. Will you reply back to this and confirm these so that title can get started on the documentation? And then after that, I'll say, hey, Kim, once Candace responds and confirms, will you have the title attorneys draw up the promissory note and all the lien documentation? Because you're going to say interest rate, the origination fees, all of this stuff. This is what we're committing to, and you get the first position lien. Then I want you to, after we all agree to it and it's a thumbs up, awesome, go ahead and draw up the documentation. After that, that promissory note. Most of the time, you're not going to have to notarize it. Some title companies will want you to notarize it, but you will sign that. Most of the time, the lender will not sign it because it's just a promissory note. You are promising to pay them back. So the information just has to be right on that promissory note. You don't want it to say that you're paying back Chris when you should be paying back Candace or a different entity or the correct entity that they want. So even the address needs to be correct, just things like that. So read through it, sign it, make sure that you and the lender say, okay, it looks good, go ahead and sign it, and then send that over to the lender. That will be part of closing documents. Then when you get to closing, you want to coach your private money lender and say, hey, you need to send this money over 1 to 2 days ahead of closing. Between you and me, if it's on closing, that's okay. It'll just delay things. I don't know, maybe half a day to a full day. But send it over 1 or 2 days before closing. But when they set up their wire, you need to have them set it all up and then call the title company and say, hey, I'm about to send a wire to you for $120,000. I would rather not send this out into the ether where I can't get it anymore. So let me confirm my routing number and everything with you. 99% of the time, this is easy. And they're like, yeah, sure, great. I really only had one title company be like, what are we talking about here? Like, what do you want out of me? I'm like, well, I want to make sure that I don't send my money out into the abyss. So you just say, here's the account number I've got, here's the routing number. Okay, we're good. Cool. Click wire. And then they send the money. Now, if the close, and you can tell your lender this, if the close doesn't happen, something falls apart at the last second, they'll get all their money back. That's the benefit of using a title company instead of just wiring it directly to you or some other borrower. Because if they wire it directly to you, yeah, you got a promissory note and stuff like that. But theoretically, you could just go to Cabo and spend all their money. With the title company, now they've put if the transaction goes through, then they switch hands. So they say, all right, now you get the property and you get the money. But if it doesn't go through, they send the money back. So then at that point you close, they've sent the money, you close, and then you start with your rehab, you just get cruising. I recommend sending updates to your private money lender no less frequent than once a month. Send them updates, ideally pictures and videos that are showing progress, but then outline the progress that you've already completed. You'll likely already have to do this because you're going to have a draw schedule, but they'll send you all the money. Then after that is done, after the rehab is done, you'll start the refinance process and your new lender will reach out to them using the promissory note, their contact information. They'll say, hey, what's the payoff statement? They'll say, hey, how much does Blake owe you, Candace? Give us a number. And you will send them a payoff statement. And again, for anybody that wants to be a private money lender, go to BlakeSchweinery.com. Up at the top, invest with us. And if we're a good fit, great. I've got a training. I'll just walk you through everything. I've got all this stuff, all these contracts and calculators for how much people owe and how much what your return is going to be for private money lending. and your payoff statement, all that stuff, so that you just it's almost foolproof. You just put your name in and you send it off, and it looks like you know what you're doing, just to make it easy. So that's the whole process. That's the process of private lending when it comes to you being the investor and what you should be doing to actually hand that process off. Once you start the refinance process, I recommend reaching out to a private lender and say, "Hey, I'm starting the refinance process. Just be looking for something from, ABC Title Company," and they'll reach out asking for a payoff statement. If you have any questions, let me know. You should be the hub um, of education for your private money lender, because you want them to think of you as the person that trusts most. You want them to think of you as the real estate person. So when they think real estate investing, they think of you. So if they got a question on this loan or any other loan, you want them to come to you, and you're the solution, because now their trust in you grows. Because what is trust made up of? Two things: character and competence. They've got your character, but competence, every time they reach out to you, they're saying, "I value your competence." And so their trust for you goes up. And if their trust for you goes up, not only are they going to lend you more money if they've got it, but they're also going to connect you with other people. So, um, so that's how that process goes. Now, another question that Candace had was, for a private money lender to finance you, what cash do you have on hand? Do you have to have on hand? The real answer to this is it depends, because these private money lenders are individuals. One of the challenges of structuring a private money loan, or some people will run into this with creative financing or seller financing or sub two, is you can make the terms whatever you want. If they say, "Hey, I'll loan you $120,000, but in return, I want you to pay for me to have Chipotle for lunch for the next 3 months." Okay. Or you've got a really cool stuffed animal that their kid is obsessed with. I want Piggy. That's what I want. Okay, you can do that. Um, so I use an extreme just to illustrate a point that these terms can look different. Most of the time, the private lenders do not care. I haven't personally had a private lender ask about my credit score ever, because they don't care about you, the borrower. They care about the property, the thing that's securing the loan. Now, one of the things you can do, as an asterisk, one of the things you can do to make the deal, if someone's really concerned, like, can I trust them? Can I not? You can personally guarantee the loan. And what that means is you are tying your assets to that loan. So instead of it just being secured by your LLC and the assets under your LLC, it's now secured by all of your assets. Most of the time, this doesn't make much difference on your end. You're probably already, just the way that you've probably got things structured, you're probably already personally guaranteeing it. But what it does is it adds more value. And so sometimes you can reduce the terms and say, well, if I'm going to personally guarantee it, that adds a lot less risk for you. So instead of doing 12%, let's do 10% in order to represent that amount of risk change. And we'll keep everything else the same. That sound good? Great. But they're not asking how much money do you have on hand, how much a hard money lender will. Most of the time, most hard money lenders, 60% of them, will get your credit score. They want to do a hard pull. Some will do a soft pull, and some will do docs only. So doc or stated income only. They don't even do any pulls. But a hard money lender will. A private money lender, they just look at the deal and they say, does this make sense? And for a private money lender, one of the primary vetting things that they need to do for their due diligence on the deal is they should only lend up to 75% of the future value of the home. So if you're buying it at 50 and you're putting 20 into it and it's going to be worth 120, they should only be lending up to 75% of 120. So what is that? 24, $96,000. So if you're requesting more than that, they say, I only go up to 75, so I can only give you 96. If you need 100, you got to come up with the other four. But if you got a really, really good deal, it really doesn't matter very much. In fact, a lot of private money lenders that I talk with, they'll fund closing costs. I don't care. It's an extra $4,000 for them to make 20% on. Awesome. They're thrilled. They don't mind, as long as there's room in the deal there. So, but again, that changes by person. Everybody has a different tolerance for risk. Everybody has a different level of comfort with risk, especially if it's their first time doing a private money loan. They might say, well, I want to find every way to protect myself, and I'm scared that I'm scared that something's going to go wrong. And in that case, I would just ask them, okay, well, what would go wrong? because what you need to do is to coach them on what risk is. And a lot of you guys don't know this. I know some of you guys that are in our rental roadmap mastermind that are on the call, Candace, Chris, you've heard this before, but when we're talking about risk, risk is a function of two things. If you know what these two things are, put them in the chat. I'll give you a chance. Gold stars going out to anybody that can guess one of them. Risk is a function of two things. What are they? Yes, Gabriel. Yes, probability and consequence. So the cost of something going wrong or the pain and the likelihood that that's going to happen, the probability. So probability and pain. Gabriel, round of applause. Gold stars for you. They're in the mail. Um, so the probability that something's going to go wrong and the pain of it. Most of us, we understand the pain because that when we feel risk, we're like, oh, something could go wrong. It could hurt. But then you say, well, why do people fly then? Because the cost of that going wrong is pretty big. That's why people get really nervous when you hit turbulence. Well, it's because the likelihood of that happening is really low. All right. So when you're talking to them about them saying, well, what if this happens? You just want to help them answer that question. What if insert thing here happens? Okay. Well, what if that happens? How much would that cost? Well, let's say rehab goes over. How much would rehab go over on a $20,000 deal for a $20,000 rehab? How much do you think would be like a worst case scenario? So I don't know. Yeah, 50% over. Okay, $10,000. That's fine. How likely do you think that is to happen? Pretty unlikely. If you've done any due diligence, if you've gotten a quote from a contractor and an inspection, 50% over on rehab, something's wrong. Okay, that's a big deal. So what's the likelihood? The cost is $10,000. The likelihood of that happening is really, really low. My worst case scenario, I can still pay you back. Easy. That's, like I still have a really good deal. I still made $30,000 on this deal. And you can help coach them through that risk process. But those are the two things that they're trying to evaluate is, how much risk am I taking on? And sometimes they'll say, well, I want you to put more money into this because I want less risk on my side. If the private money lender wants you to bring 20% down, they're just better private lenders out there. Honestly, there's just better options. You don't need, I have tactfully had to say to some private lenders that I was courting, say, I can do this without you. You can't do this without me. You don't know anybody else that does this. You can't make 16 to 18, 20% on your money without me. And the one person that I talked to about that, 12 months later, they came back and was like, frick, we should have started with you a long time ago. We'd have made so much money. So uh, if they're requiring 20% down, you say, well, I can get that anywhere. Like, why should I work with you if I can get that? That's ubiquitous. That's all over the place. I can spin around in a circle, throw a rock, and hit three lenders that'll give me that. 10% down is doable. What's attractive about a private money lender is one, I don't have to bring any money down if I find a good deal. And two, I can pay in arrears. So I pay at the end with the equity of the home. And that's not because I don't want to come out of pocket any money. It's because it allows me to pay with the equity of the home. So most of the time people think you got to put 20% down on a home. You don't have to put 20%. The lender doesn't care about 20% down. They care about what they will loan on the home, 80% of the value of the home. And that might sound trivial, like, oh, this is the same thing. It's potato, potato, tomato. All right. So, but it is significant because if you've got $100,000 property that you only owe $50,000 on, they'll give you $80,000. You can walk away with 30 grand. And if you're buying a house for $80,000 that's worth $120,000, there are lenders out there that will loan you 80% of 120. So you could theoretically walk away with money at closing by buying a property. Now, those are harder to find. You have to find them way below market, and you got to find a lender that will do that, but it's doable. There are lenders out there that do it. So your position to them is, well, why would I do that? It's just not, that's not as helpful. Like the private money thing, these are the two things that are valuable for me. So if you want to do it a different way, that's okay. It's probably just not a good fit for me. So bringing money out of pocket is way less common with private money. And in my opinion, I wouldn't say it's a red flag, but a yellow flag because all the lenders that I have heard that do that have been way too difficult to work with. they're just such a headache to work with, and they want to go through every little thing to be like, oh, is this going to work? But they also haven't done it before. So they magnify all the risk, but they don't properly understand what the upside is. They only look at the risk, like the downside. They don't look at what if it goes right. They just say, what if it goes wrong? And it's terrible. So it usually those people I find it's more of a headache than it's worth. So that's how much they'll expect you to have out of pocket. Some will care, but most care about the deals. Um, Now, what I will say, your final question, what out-of-pocket expenses should an investor anticipate paying personally that you might not have considered? I would say the first thing and the main thing that comes to mind is an inspection cost. An inspection cost, that's going to be, for a single family home, a few $100s. You should get an inspection on every property, regardless of whether you get an option period, because a lot of wholesalers won't allow an option period. But regardless of whether you get an option period, you want an inspection done because the inspector's job is different than a contractor's job. A contractor is going to tell you how much work they can do on the property. And if I'm selling umbrellas, I'm going to tell you it's going to rain. It's going to rain a lot, and it's raining tomorrow. So they're going to tell you everything they can do on the property. Their job is not to say, hey, this electrical isn't up to code. They could, or this electrical is up to code. It's just not pretty. It's just not ugly, or it's just ugly. A contractor might say, it's fine, just leave it when it's not up to code and you actually should replace it. Or they might say, you need to completely redo your electrical just because it's not pretty. An inspector will say, what's the risk profile? And is it up to code? Is it right or wrong? And the output is usually, hey, these are high risk. You need to do these now. These are moderate risk. Most of the time, they're the best inspectors will color code these. So it's red, yellow, and then usually blue for normal things that are just not quite as important. So that, and then sometimes earnest money. Now, with earnest money, uh, that will vary. The amount of that will vary based on the person that you're working with. And for those not familiar with it, earnest money is a sign of good faith, essentially. Whenever you get under contract on a property, you'll send over earnest money. If you're working with a deal off the MLS and you're in a state, say like Texas, you have to pay for your option period as well. Some states don't have an option period, or they don't pay for an option period. It's just a due diligence period. It's baked in. But you have to pay for that. So the option money is gone. That's like paying $50 or whatever it is in your market for saying I'm reserving this property. I get it for 7 days and nobody can get to look at it. Your earnest money, if the deal doesn't close and you're still an option, you get that money back. But the goal of it, it's usually about 1% of the purchase price. But then when it comes to off-market deals, it's usually a fixed amount. But that amount, the goal is to say, I'm serious about this instead of just getting under contract and not having any money in the deal and then backing out at the last second. If you back out and you don't have an option period, you lose that earnest money. So a newer wholesaler might say, I want $500 for earnest money. I've seen up to $7,500 for earnest money on a single family home. That's New Western. They're the largest wholesaler in the country. Their NDA and their earnest money is, I think they're very proud of what they offer. It is way more expensive than I think is market or reasonable. But if you can do it, great. Go make some money. So you might have to spend that too. But then whenever you get funding from a private money lender, if you're buying it for $50,000 plus 20 grand in rehab, and you have to come up with 2,500 bucks for an earnest money deposit. Right now, I'm seeing like a $1,500 to $2,500 for earnest money. You come up with $2,500, then when you close, the whole $50,000 goes to close. And so if you have any overage, you can get that paid back into your pocket. So that's the only other thing that I would say that you could anticipate coming out of pocket for. Hopefully I know that's a long-winded answer, but I know private money is really important to everybody here. And so I hope that was valuable to everybody. I know we had some follow-up conversations. Sharon's was, are, are, are you sure? They make 20%. Yeah. Usually the way that they'll structure it is 12% interest, 2 points origination. And so what that comes out to is 12% interest is 1% a month. So if you're loaning $70,000, you're paying 700 bucks a month. But then the 2 points origination is 2% of the loan that you pay no matter what. Even if I pay you back tomorrow, I got to pay that. So if I'm paying you back in 3 months, what that means is if I've already paid 2% up front, the return is higher. So you can, if it's paid back faster, you can make, 22% annualized APR. So I mean, again, it's really good money. All right. AJ, what are the best markets looking forward for multifamily? This depends on what your goals are. If you're looking for cash flow, I'm seeing really great deals in Akron, Ohio, Birmingham, Alabama, Macon, Georgia. For appreciation, you can look at the top markets report. And again, it depends on what you mean by multifamily too. If it's single, small, or like small multifamily, quadplexes and below, or large multifamily like new builds. But generally, that would be my answer. Da-da-da-da. Bob, I'm thinking about combining DSCR loan with PML. It's a good way to buy property with no money down. How would you position that with the DSCR lender? Okay, so there's a couple different ways you can use private money lenders. There's three. There's a debt position. There's an equity position. Debt, there's two options. Equity, there's one option. And these are the main primary options. Of course, there's always more options because, like I said, you can negotiate piggy into this deal. Um, but the debt options are you taking out a loan from them. So it's a debt position, meaning they're loaning you money and you just have to pay them back interest, and then the principal at the end. So the short-term version of that would be for something like a flip or a burr. They loan you $100,000 for the purchase and rehab of a property, and then you pay them back. In that case, they get a primary position on the property. They get a senior lien on the property, and then you pay them back quickly. And that's usually 6 to 12 months of a note. So that's short term. Then there's medium term, where they're loaning you money over say a 1 to 3 or maybe even 5 year term, where they would bring a 20% down payment on a long-term property. So you find a turnkey property that you need 20% down for because the bank will only loan up to 80, and you get 20 from a private money lender. That would still be a debt position. So you would pay them on top. So if you're going to cash flow 300 bucks a month on that, as if you put 20% down yourself, now you got to calculate in that extra 20% down that you're paying whatever it is, 8%, 8% would be low for something like that because that's, just north of where mortgages are right now. So call it 12%. So you're paying 200 bucks a month on that. So you're only cash flowing 100 bucks a month now. So it needs to be decently appreciating too for you to really make any money on it. That's what I'd say there is you just got to make sure that the numbers math. But that's how that's structured is you're going to pay them back in 3 years or so. And the goal is that your house the property is appreciated enough to pay back that amount. So that 20% down, you then go refinance into a long-term loan. You do a cash out refinance, you pay them back the other 20%. So that's the second deal. And then the final is an equity position where they would give you 20% down and they get equity in the property. So they get an ownership stake. And so, they bring the money, you bring the deal and the management, and you split it, whether it's 50-50 or, usually you'll split it. They're, kind of 20% chunks, depending on what people bring, whether they bring the credit or the money or the deal or the management or the expertise, any of that stuff. You can split it however you want. You could also say, hey, you get half of the property, the equity, and I get the cash flow. You get all the tax advantages. Cool. Awesome. All right. So you can split it that way. But that's usually the three ways to structure it. If you are bringing 20% down for well, I'd say if you're bringing a gap loan, let's say you've got a hard money lender funding 90% and you need the other 10% from a private money lender. Some hard money lenders don't like that. So one, just find a hard money lender that does. Again, they're all over the place. And if you get in a pinch and the hard money lender doesn't like that, you can go ahead and close and have the private money lender wire the money to you. Sign the promissory note ahead of time. They wire it to you. Then you go ahead and close. And 5 to 7 days after close, reach back out the title and say, I want you to go ahead and place this lien for this other loan that I have, and I'm going to secure it with this property. And then you'll pay a $75, lien placement fee. You can do that. But if you're doing it with a long-term loan, yeah, most DSR lenders, they're not going to care where the money's coming from. Now they may care about your liquidity position, right? You have 6 months reserves or whatever, but you're 20% down. They probably won't care where that's coming from. But again, if you really needed to, you could write up a promissory note where the lender is lending directly to you and they send you the money and they get a security position on that property and you file it later. Da, 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 da. Okay, Bob, great. Uh, Minimum purchase price of a home in order to be refinanced with it. Okay, Tony's question is, what's the minimum purchase price of a home in order to be refinanced with a DSCR loan? This depends on the lender. And so when you talk to a lender and you say, "Hey, this is what I want to do. I have an $80,000 property that I want to refinance." Some lenders will say, "You can't do that." And the reality is you can do that. You're just talking to the wrong person. It's like if you go to a taco place, you say, "Man, I want a quarter pounder with cheese." They'll say, "You can't do that. That doesn't mean burgers don't exist. It just means you're at the wrong place. You got to go to a burger place, or you got to go to Burger King to get that." So in this case, you need to find a lender that has a minimum loan amount that fits within your profile. So this type of stuff is where ChatGPT is awesome. I mean, you can just say, "This is the type of loan that I want. Give me 20 lenders that will do this." But once you get under $100,000 loan amount, $100,000 property amount, there are less lenders that loan on those properties, and maybe it's 40% of all lenders, and this is just kind of finger to the wind. 40% of lenders would loan on that. Then the next step down is $75,000 of a loan amount, and the next step is usually $55,000. So there's different steps for how many people will lend on that. That doesn't mean that it's not possible and that no one will do it. There are some lenders that don't have any loan minimums. And but your rates usually go up. So instead of 80% LTV, maybe they only give you 70. Or instead of market rate, maybe it's market plus 1%. All right. So but there's no minimum purchase price for a DSCR loan. The requirement for a DSCR loan doesn't have to do with purchase price, it has to do with condition rating. So if you're putting on a 30-year loan, it doesn't matter what the purchase price is. You have to make sure that it meets the condition rating. So condition rating is C1 through C6. You can search the condition ratings, mortgages, real estate on Google, and you'll see C1 through C6. And they're very descriptive on what C1 is, C2 is, C3 is. It has to be C4 or above. So C1 is a brand new home. It's in great shape. No distress, no deferred maintenance. C6 this is in bad shape. It needs to almost be bulldozed and just rebuilt. Most of the properties that you'll be buying to flip or burr are going to be C5s and C6s, and you're trying to push them to C4, C3. Getting them up to C2 that's going to be tough. But that's really what you're looking about there. All right. GP, Blake, repeat. You weren't clear. Okay. Are you saying we can purchase a property without down payment of 20% using private hard money lenders? If I have equity in a deal, you please. Okay. All right. So let me go over this again. A bank doesn't care whether you're bringing 20% down. Now, I mean, I get some banks will have just this standard, you got to bring some money to the table. But most banks for investment properties, they care about the asset, not the borrower. So this is the difference between commercial money and conventional money. Conventional money, Freddie and Fannie, they care about the borrower. And so the way that they evaluate the borrower is twofold: DTI and your credit score. DTI, debt to income. So how much money you have coming in divided by how much money is, or I guess flip it. How much money coming in is on the bottom, and how much money is going out is on top. And that can't be more than 50%. So if you make $10,000 a month, that's on bottom, and you got $5,000 a month of obligations or credit responsibilities, that would be mortgages, loans that are reported to credit bureaus, credit cards, retail debt, all of those things. On top, that can't be more than 50%. And with some of the different loan offerings, it's as low as 43%. So that's the requirement. They care about the borrower. Commercial money, they care about the asset that's securing the loan, the thing that protects them from losing money. So they don't care as much about you. Some of them don't even care about your credit score, but they definitely don't care about your DTI. Some of them will do stated income. They don't care. They care about the property's performance. And so that's where Tony's acronym that he used there, DSCR loan, comes in. They don't care about DTI or credit score. They care about DSCR. because DSCR is the way that they measure the performance of the property. It stands for debt service coverage ratio. And it's similar to DTI, but it's property specific. So it's asking the question of the mortgage that we're giving you, how much of that is going to be covered by your rent or your operational income? So the way they calculate that is income on the property divided by debt service or your mortgage. So if your debt service is $1,000 a month and you make 1,100 bucks a month on this property, that's a 1.1 DSCR. And you might say, well, what's a good DSCR? Anything above 1.1, 1.1 is usually, this is lender specific, but again, anywhere between 1 and 1.25 is usually their floor. I've seen lenders go as low as 0.9 recently just because they really still want some more business, and it's been a little bit harder on lenders lately. But if you're buying a cash flowing property, everybody and their dog knows that if you're making $1,100 a month and your mortgage payment is $1,000 a month, you are not cash flowing on that property. It does not matter. There's nothing you can do to cash flow on that property. So a cash flowing property, usually your DSCR is going to be 2.5. You know, I had one lender who said, "Man, I don't even look at your DSCR anymore because it's always like 2.5 or 3. Like I just don't even look at it anymore." So, the reason I say all of that is they care about the property. So whenever the lender is saying, "Here's how much I can finance," they care about 80% LTV or whatever their LTV requirement is. They'll give 80% of the property value. So if you have bought it for 50 and you put 20 into it, now it's worth 120, they will they'll use your equity to refinance you out. So 120, 80% of that is 96, but you're only in for $20,000. You can get cut a check for 26 grand at refinance. My first property I bought for 18.5, put 24 in after my first contractor walked off with 12 grand, and it ended up appraising at 110. And so I cashed out $35,000 on that property. And then I went and bought 2 turnkeys. So that one property turned into 3. So that's what I mean by the lender doesn't care about 20% down. Now, what I will say is your question says private hard money lenders. There's a distinction there. A hard money lender is not a private lender, and a private lender is not a hard money lender. Now, there's some confusion in the market because their lenders will do whatever they can to market themselves and make them appear more sexy. So there's a lot of hard money lenders saying, "I'm a private money lender," and because there's no regulation on those words. But a private money lender, truly speaking, is an individual with their own money that they're loaning. All right, so it's in their bank account. If they're saying, talk to our loan originator, or it's not their money that they're pulling out of their account, they're a hard money lender. A private money lender, yeah, you could borrow their 20% down to go buy a property and use theirs as 20% down. A hard money lender is not going to do that. Um, who can do 0% down payment? Okay, so for a hard money lender, there are let's see, there's 3 or 4 hard money lenders that will do 100% financing. They do require you to bring some to the table. Rehab Financial, Longhorn Investments are 2 that come to mind. For private money lenders these are the individuals. Again, these are harder to find. So hard money lenders are easier to find, but not quite as flexible. Private money lenders harder to find, but way more flexible. The private money lenders that I have on my list, they go directly to my students first, so people in my mastermind. But if you want to, you can, once we put up the recording, you go listen to the first probably 15 minutes. I gave kind of a quick start on how to raise your own private money lending, private money lenders, and I think that'll help you, GP. Okay, I can find deals. All we need is the funding. Okay. Great. Okay, I've lost EMDs because private money lenders backed off the deal. Yes, so you got to make sure that your private money lender is committed. And so what that means is whenever you get commitment from their money, you got to say, "Hey, what I can't do is get into a situation where you say you'll fund this and then you back out." All right, so it, it doesn't matter to me. I just need to know up front. If you're going to say, "I don't know, I'm 50% committed to this." Okay, that's what, at least I know. I'm not like putting all my money in this thing or all my eggs in this thing and then you back out. You got like I need to understand exactly where you're at. So if I find you a good deal and you give me a thumbs up, can I count on it? Because you've got to be able to count on their word. The other thing that I'll say is if you've got a private money lender and you think that things aren't going like you smell something in the air that they might back off, immediately start setting up hard money lending. And don't do it with one hard money lender, do it with at least five. And send out an email, BCC all of them. In the subject line, put quote request, and in the body, say the details of the property. I'm looking for a fix and flip product, whatever product you're looking for. Here's the details of the property. Will you send me a quote? Your subject line's got to say quote request because if, for example, if it said support request or I need tech support, that's a cost center for every business. You're going to get a slower response than you would from a profit center. So if it says quote request, it's going straight to a salesperson and they're going to get on it fast. And then they'll give you quotes and you at least got something backed up so that you can save the deal. All right. How likely is it for a new investor with zero experience to be able to get a deal funded with reasonable terms by private money or hard money lender? With Gabriel, great question. Um, it's 100% doable. I raised private money for my first deal. I didn't know what I was doing. In fact, this guy lent me six figures for two deals. I downloaded a promissory note off of Google and we just signed it and sent it. It was not enforceable at all looking back. But luckily, he found somebody that he could trust, character and competence. All right. I knew enough of what I was doing that the deal turned out to be really good. And he made gangbusters on it. He made so much money on it. And I was going to make sure that he was taken care of no matter what. So it's 100% doable. With private money, it's more doable. Well, I guess the balance of reasonable terms. You're with hard money, you're way more likely to be approved or find that easily, but you're going to have to bring more money to the table. So your terms aren't as good. So they might start you off at 14% interest, and then after you got four doors, you get down to 10%. And then if you do a ton of doors, hard money is very scalable, but it's a higher barrier to entry because they're trying to protect their risk. As a lender, you've got two things to consider. How do I make money on this? And how do I make sure I don't lose money on this? So how do I make money? Interest, origination, doc prep fees, broker fees, all that stuff. How do I make sure I don't lose money on this deal? The security on the property and how much they loan relative to the property value. So now with a private money lender, you have to raise that money yourself. So you've got to get somebody to trust you. And your knee-jerk reaction is probably like, well, why should they trust me? I don't know what I'm doing. This is my first deal. Some people might say, well, Gabriel, I can't wait to lend to you, but just go do 4 or 5 deals and then we're good to go. You're kind of in a chicken and the egg situation where you're like, well, it's kind of like, when you're in school and they're like, the employer that you're interviewing with says you need to have experience. And you're like, I'm interviewing for an unpaid internship. What are you talking about experience? Like this is how I get this experience. So that chicken and the egg situation can be the same with private money lending. You just have to you've got to work through their obstacles, their objections. You say that makes sense. You want to protect your money. What is it that makes you nervous? Because I'm confident in what I do and whether it works out or not. That's totally fine. I'm a really great fit for people who I'm a really great fit for. So what is it that's a concern for you? And they're going to bring up something. And if they don't, if they're like, I'm not sure, tell them, well, you're trying to figure out, can you trust me? Trust is a function of two things, character, competence. Which is it? Is it character or is it competence that you're concerned about? And I'll tell you, it's always going to be competence. Because if you're talking to them and you have connected with them through somebody who's trusting, that they trust, your character is going to be fine. They're wondering about your competence. And you can say, it's not going to hurt my feelings. Is it character or competence? Oh, it's competence. Okay, great. That makes sense. So what's your concern around competence? All right. Okay. So you're concerned. Okay. What if this goes wrong? What if this goes wrong? Then just outline all of them. Okay. Okay. What else? Well, I'm concerned that you might misjudge rehab. Okay. Well, what else? I'm concerned I might not get paid back. Okay. Fair. I would be concerned about. What else? Well, you might go to Cabo with my money. All right. That would be more of a character thing than competence, but outline all those things and then go through and talk about every single one of them and say, well, we're talking through risk, like the likelihood that this happens and the cost of this happening, and go through them. It's just not very likely to happen. And if it does happen, it's going to cost $5,000. So I'm still going to be able to pay you back. Right. I've got the liquidity to be able to do this. I want to be able to maximize my returns. So It's very, very doable, but it requires more sales skills, and that's a skill to build. So Tony, where can I find a list of DSCR lenders? I would Google DSCR lenders with your state, wherever you're investing, and you'll get a big list of them. ChatGPT is just awesome at this too. I'm not sure if I have my lender vault posted in as an asset in the community. I think I do, but you might go check the community. If for some reason you can't find it, send me a message and say, "Hey, you mentioned you got a lender vault," and I'll send it to you. I usually keep that for my mastermind students, but I'm happy to send it to you to help out. Um, awesome. Well, that's the all the questions that we've got in the chat. I've got one more question that Sean sent over in the blakeshwine.com/ask. And so I'll go ahead and answer that, and then we will go ahead and wrap up this month's Q&A. Sean's question is, how can I get started in real estate if I haven't worked in the last year because of my disability? I'm learning some skills to rehab a house, and but I believe financing will be my hurdle. Um, so if you haven't worked in the last year, this would primarily affect you, Sean, with conventional money. Because if you haven't worked or you're 1099 or you're non W-2, you're self-employed, whatever, they want 2 years of pay stubs. Because what do they care about? They care about you, the borrower, and they care about your debt to income. So your debt to income, they got to have bank statements and pay stubs and tax returns and a skin graft and a blood sample and a platelet. There's so much documentation you got to give those people. DSCR lenders, they don't care about this. They care about the asset that's securing the loan, the property. So if you find a good property, financing will be easier. If for some reason, let's say that you're everything about your financial situation is just on fire, you can have somebody else join in on the deal just to use their credit. So you can say, I tell you what, I'm going to find the deal. I'll vet it. I'll analyze everything. I just want to use your credit. And in exchange for that, I will pay you X% on whatever the amount is during rehab. Or I'll give you 20% of the property. You don't even have to do anything. You just got to use your credit. That's another way to get around it. Awesome. Cool. I wish we could keep going. We got to go ahead and wrap up, but these questions, if you've got questions that are outstanding, I know Joseph and GP just sent some questions over. Send them over in the community in school, school.com, SKOOL.com/rentals2wealth. That's rentals, the number two wealth. Send them over there, and I'll try and get you some answers. I know the rest of the community will help you out as well. But we'll go ahead and wrap up this month's Q&A. If this was helpful for you, great. If it wasn't helpful for you, send over some feedback on anything that would be helpful for you. My goal is to help investors close more deals faster. So that's my goal, so that they can get to financial freedom, do whatever they want with their time. If that's staying at their job, awesome. If it's saying, I love to paint, but I suck at painting, I can't make any money off of it, great. They can still do whatever fills their soul. If they want to be with their kids more, awesome. That's what I want to help people do. So with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up. As you have other questions, send them over in the community. We'll get you taken care of. Otherwise, we will see you at the next Q&A. All right. Happy investing. See you guys.